All right, everybody, welcome back to Off the Grid on the Record, the show where we go beyond all the BS, the buzzwords, and talk to real operators building the future of energy infrastructure and mobility. Today's guest is no BS kind of voice in a space that's often flooded with fluff. Today I'm talking with Sergej Marojevic, the founder of QCharge, a company that is at the forefront of turnkey EV infrastructure deployment, from permitting to installation to system integration with solar and storage. Sergey doesn't just run a company, he's been in the trenches physically installing charging stations before building one of the most agile, full stack EV deployment outfits in the US. Today, we're diving deep into what's actually slowing EV adoption, how to think beyond rebates, and what smart property owners and developers need to know now before the next wave of mandates hits. So let's plug in. Sergey, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us. How are you doing today?
Great, and thank you for having me on the show and opportunity to share my thoughts and experience that I have in the collected in the past couple of years.
Of course. No, we like to outsource and really bring in a bunch of different opinions and, insights from all over the industry. So I think you are the first and probably one of the biggest contributors we could have in terms of EVs and, kind of the way that all of the charging stations are growing and, especially with how big the industry has gotten. So I'm excited to jump into it and really hear what you have to say. If I'm ready to go, are you ready? Let's hit
Oh
it.
yeah, for sure, for sure. So I mean, yeah, I mean, look, there is a lot of buzz these days. A big adoption, shifting changes, politics, and everything that is kind of in behind involved. What we are, seeing today. Like I said, this is unstopping train. It already started kind of like taking a lot of let's say changes in the world, right? First of all, everything was uh, the biggest actually adoption. It started from the Europe and the Asia mainly in China. China, it's right now almost I believe so 98% electric on the cities. And as far when it comes to the Western Europe, Western North Europe, right, specifically Scandinavia, they're also like surpassing already 90% of the implementation. Switching basically just to the electric cars, because people are considerate of their environment, their health being, what air do we breathe and stuff like that, right? So just
Exactly.
kind of basically to give something back to the planet. I mean, we were basically destroying the planet already for a very long time, so at least some reparation, from our end can happen. And I think that we are right now on the right track worldwide, so that also that the United States finally start more adopting on the transition through the electrification, of the transportation. And we do see, that I mean we're still a big country. We have 50 states. Not everybody are, adopting as we were expecting or we would like to see. Because first of all, I would think that people are lacking of knowledge. What is behind why that electric car is good or why basically even not is good. I mean,
Hmm.
not everything is perfect in our life, but I believe so that there is a lot of misinformation. A lot of people are lacking on information. How this actually can work and what are the benefits on the long term for everybody.
Exactly.
Just for me being in electrical construction, very an electrical contracting business for a very long time, over 20 years. I kind of shifted towards that. I started very, very early in my career, working with the very sophisticated and smart houses, smart panels, smart systems. So already that kind of give me a perception in which direction entire world is going to go when it comes to the technology and technological advancement. Starting with the computerization, then cell phones, now smart houses, now we have smart cars. Tomorrow it's going to be smart
Exactly.
planes. So we're just going to that direction, regardless we want it or not. It just depends, how you as a person are willing to adapt to change and see those new ventures and new technological advancements. But not only necessarily the technological advancements, it's good for humanity because sometimes technology is going to end up in the wrong hands. But I believe so
Hmm.
the technological progress, it's what we actually need to strive and go towards that because everything in the life as a civilization we're doing in a progressive state now, right? So we progress very fast these days compared to let's
Exactly.
say how it was 100 years ago. 100 years ago, we needed almost I would say thousands of years before we switched from a car to I mean from a horse to a car, from a car to flying. It was only 20 years. Now we're in a brink of a step that we're going to be probably flying, to the Mars and colonize it, right? So we'll see.
Exactly. Well, no, that's interesting because it kind of ties into what you were saying last week when we talked, off the record. But You've said that the real bottleneck isn't tech. You know, things are always evolving. Technology is always going to be, growing and really changing, and there's going to be new innovations, day to day. So, you said the bottleneck was paperwork. So, can you talk about how Q-Charge kind of cuts through permitting delays and the red tape that, I guess most people or most companies don't really see coming?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, there is no cutting through. I wish there would be. We do have to kind of go with a flow that each city has, unfortunately, different processes and timelines, and also they are backlogged as well because they don't have enough personnel. And not only that, this is a new thing. A lot of engineers from the cities and the departments over there that they have to go through the engineering when you submit them. Sometimes they don't also understand the whole complexity of the charging stations, in which way they operate and work, and there is a lot of information that you have to provide them, and even if you provide them, sometimes they don't understand them, they cannot read that. And it's kind of back and forth on negotiation. It takes very, very, very long time. It doesn't matter if that's only one charger or we're putting 1,000 chargers. The process of the paperwork is pretty much the same. And then, of course, each municipality, or let's say, we're broken by the states, we're broken by the cities, we're broken by the zip codes, by the counties. So every location has a different type of a set of rules, which unfortunately, we have to adapt and follow. Some are more restrictive, some are more easygoing, but all depends. In the areas where I see that the EV adoption is higher, then also those inspectors and those cities are easier to kind of work with them because they have the knowledge behind it, and they're already faced with these type of services and permitting and so on and so forth, engineering. However, there are some states and there are some locations even within the states that they are adopting. Not all the cities are adopting, so it's very difficult kind of to find the proper channel, which way you're going to go. And when you need some information, it's very difficult to get to the right person. Takes you some
Exactly.
time, run around from one department to the next, leaving the voicemails. And it is the most of the time consuming. It's actually that bureaucracy and paperwork. Look, to put the charging stations in the ground from the aspect of the contracting and installation, it can take between 1 week to maybe 3 weeks the most. Depends, of course, of the size of the complexity. It can go a little bit longer than that. But compared to the bureaucracy, just to obtain the permit through the engineering and all the stuff that takes several months, usually in the best case scenario, it's 4 to 6 months. But in some cases, it takes like a year, year and a half before you actually even have the permit in your hand. So a lot of time, people become discouraged in the process of waiting on that stuff. So sometimes the deals just fall apart because of it takes too long, or the clients are going to think, oh, maybe other company is going to be more better, so then they stop working with you and they go with the other company. But then
Hmm.
sometimes they're not going to go back to you saying, okay, I already wasted the time, like this much, so let me continue with you where we stopped, and continue at least to, shorten the time. But I understand people are, like I said, they don't know, they're not educated, they don't understand. Not to disregard anybody. Everybody has a certain degree of education, but they're not educated in
Hmm.
this matter of paperwork, vast of the paperwork, because there is like 6 to 7 different departments we have to go through before we actually get an approval. And then after the finalization of the project, then you have to go also and deal with inspectors, which sometimes each inspector has different perception, different reading of the codes, different approach. And also their cities, they have different type of set rules internally. So it's very, very difficult to
Exactly.
kind of standardize all this. You have to literally adjust per each project differently. So I'll tell you an example. Project in California and Los Angeles is going to be completely different than the project in San Diego, or project in Texas, or even within the Texas, project in Houston versus San Antonio, or Dallas Fort Worth is going to be again different. Depends, because you're working with the different utility companies. They have a different, again, the rules and mandates that you have to kind of follow. And everything that kind of falls into place, that for that reason, the sales cycles and installation cycles per one project are very long. Usually takes about a year and a half to sometimes even to 2 years before you actually finalize the project. And I'm talking about the
Wow.
serious projects. When we're talking about the small projects, when it's basically the building, you just have to go in, and they have, let's say, it's a multifamily property. When you're planning to install, let's say, up to maybe 20 or 40, 50 charging stations that they're like inside the garage. That can be done very fast. I mean, that can be streamlined within 6 months to 8 months with the paperwork. The physical installation,
Hmm.
it's usually within 2 weeks, I mean, to 3 weeks, because you already have everything inside. You just need to run a couple of the pipes, and I mean, not couple, a lot of pipes. And then, of course, run all the wiring and, make sure that you have actually good team, because not everybody knows also how to do this and to approach as well, because there is a lot of different codes that they are kind of right now interacting from different departments on your actual installation, and you really need to be aware of that.
That's amazing. And one thing that you did touch on was, awareness of government and, like how the policies are all kind of playing into the help. And I think that also kind of drives into the sales process when you have all these incentives and, maybe the credits coming in. And a lot of folks see EV infrastructure as only viable if they get a rebate. But you push back on that mindset. Like, why do you believe this industry is profitable even without government help?
Well, let's put it this way. Any industry in the past, did that industry depend on the rebates and the government incentives? No. They just went in and they done the business. You just need to find the proper business model, right? Every business model is a little bit different. Now, this is kind of driven by demand in any way, because we are already playing a catch-up game with EV infrastructure, because selling a car and producing a car, it's way easier than actually finding the facilities and needed equipment or needed energy for deployment of your infrastructure. So to help on that one was also kind of implemented a lot of, let's say, grants that we have, and we had. Now, unfortunately, the Trump administration, it's removing some of those grants and mandates on a federal level, but it cannot remove them on a state level, because it comes to the state governors and officials, which rebates they will, and not only them, it's also by the utility companies and different type of private sectors that right now are seeing the lucrative way that they can actually provide the rebates. But I don't know in which way their programs are working, because we have so many different programs and they're not running all the time. You need to be actually aware when the program is running, because some programs are going to be running only half a year in a year, because then the next half a year they are preparing the documentations and all that kind of stuff at the end of the year that they have to actually do the payouts. So
Hmm.
why am look, I'm not saying that I'm completely opposed to it. I'm actually looking for every type of rebate or the incentives that we can help our clients to achieve their ROI on a shorter track. However, by my experience, since I've been already in this industry over, I would say, good 7, 8 years, um, I was um, I was able to identify all those rebates in which way they kind of can help to the clients, and how we can actually combine them with the state and the federal kind of combined together. Not everywhere are available as well. And some of them they're already gone with the rebates, because they were already early adopters for about 5 to 6, 7 years ago, so they already depleted their grants and the rebates. But if your calculations, and let's say the way how we do the business, since our personal experience, and we have also the experts in our company that they also run and operate their own charging stations across several states, we kind of emphasize to see which locations and which states are really good cities, right? For example, urban areas are always good, and the majority of we have about 10, 11 states that they have highest adoption of the EV. And amongst those, let's say 10 states, we have about, let's say, about 50 cities across United States that we can actually say, okay, yeah, that city it's lucrative, that location it's lucrative. And then we have also a variety of the tools online that you do analytics of the sites, right, through the different type of platforms, the third-party
Hmm.
analytics companies, that they can tell us like what is actually the traffic flow on those locations, how many EVs it's registered in the area, what is the household, and so on and so forth. So it's about 50 different ways that we can track all the informations for, let's say, for that particular location of interest where to deploy the charging stations, which then we present that to our clients and customers, and we can see that usually within a year and 2 months to mostly about 2 years, you can break even. So find me one
Wow.
investment today that can tell you that you can break even within 3 years. Usually people are
Exactly.
like between 4 to 5 years. This is very, I would say, very lucrative industry right now. And I would say who is the early adopter is going to benefit the most, because I believe so that we are basically scratching the surface of all this. We're in the deficit of the charging stations right now. By the statistics we have on, I believe, so on 100 EVs, there is only one charging station, publicly available one charging station. So
Wow.
the ratio it's a very high. And on top of that, there is no guarantees these days when you get to the charging stations, are they going to be operational when you come to it? So that kind of becomes a little bit of an issue in the minds of majority of the public and consumers, because they are feeling that kind of, okay, where is my security that I'm not going to be stranded on the street all the time, which is slowly it's moving away, because majority of the people who do adopt EV and buy the car itself, they will get also the charging stations for their home. So majority of your charging sessions, it's happening at a household. However, the problem is when people are using, let's say, those luxury cars like Lucid or Cybertruck, or let's say
Hmm.
Porsche Taycan or Audis and stuff like that, or which they are high consumers and they need actually a higher power charging station. So your home charger will, for example, for a fact, because a friend of mine who bought a Cybertruck, he said that the charger came with the Tesla. I mean, from the Tesla with the vehicle. It takes him 3 days to charge the vehicle. So that's the
Wow.
reason, because it's a level one charger, it's a trickle charger. So that's why the people are going towards the public charging stations where they can, tap it on very fast. The home use, it's basically just okay, so those couple miles in a day that you have a regular commuting. And then also depends on the capacity of the charger that you have at home. Majority of the people going to go to at least 32, 40 amps, depending of course of the capacity available to their homes, which a lot of people don't have that capacity. And that is the reason why we are kind of facing to right now that demand public charging stations, because they cannot achieve enough of the charging at their homes that is going to have their kind of, let's say, ease of mind on a daily uses.
Exactly. And I think that ties into what we were thinking because, last week you mentioned that smart planning and data-driven site selection is, very, very key. So I think the one thing I kind of want to dive into, which kind of relates to the ROI question, I guess, depending on the markets that you're serving, but what kind of analytics are you using and how does it change the game for fleet operators or property owners?
Well, I mean, look, there is a lot of different ways that we can run analytics. Some of them, when we started it, right, when there is not much of a data-driven AIs for all this stuff, like 4 or 5 years ago, we were basically
Hmm.
kind of, it was your own assessment. You know the area, you just go around and you can go on a public records to find, for example, the what you can, right, for that region, for that area, for that zip code. And then based on that, we would kind of bring the most, best evaluation that we can, right? How much utilization can be predicted. Now, these days, there is several third-party companies with an AI-driven platforms, and that they already have also the public available integration of through their software, that they can run that really, really, I would say, detailed analytics and provide us as best as possible scenarios. But of course, this is all guesstimation. It cannot be 100% bulletproof. But at least it gives you a better perception than it was, let's say, 5 to 10 years ago. And combined with all that, right, with our, like I said, knowledge, and then there is like a several available public websites like a PlugShare, for example, where you can find all networks, all charging stations in one place on a map, and you can actually see if it's under construction. You can see the rating of the charging stations. You can see what is over there available. You can see their utilization and so on and so forth. That is one of the tools that we're going to always check when we are, let's say, doing a site assessment. Is in that area? How many charging stations it's already there? Who are our main competitors? Do we see how much of utilization is? Do we see that those charging stations are operable or non-operable? Based on that, all that data, we're going to then say, okay, yeah, this is a good location. But to be honest with you, we already found out that even without that, you don't have to worry about, because you can have a supercharging center right across of you. You can create, I mean, look, right now you have gas stations on one corner, you're going to find four of them. Are they competitors to each other? Yes, but they're going to still be busy. So That's how it's going to be with the charging stations as well. It's just a matter of time when the entire United States will actually adopt into the electric vehicles, which, like I said, eventually it will happen. Is it going to happen 5 years or 10 years? But we're on a fast track right now on shifting and changing in our mindset. And this new generation of the kids that I'm seeing and talking a lot, they like technology. They like everything. Okay, just on the push of a button. I don't have to drive. Let me my car drive me, and I'm gonna be on my phone TikToking or whatever, and so on and so forth. So you can see that already it's coming there. And not only that, a lot of transportation companies like Uber, Lyft, even taxi, you can see I believe it's called Waymo, right? The company that it's already using autonomous taxi and Uber as well. So you have as
Mm-hmm.
well already that it is there, and I believe so that's going to eventually end up that we're going to have like in a fifth element, a cab driver with a robot in the middle that he's basically talking to and driving you somewhere, right?
Exactly. Like you've said, like this industry is really shifting in front of our eyes. Like we're gonna have, charging stations instead of gas stations on every corner, and I think that's interesting. But I think as one of the leaders in that industry, what do you think companies should be doing now to stay relevant, especially in states like California or Texas or the ones that you've even talked about the most?
Well, look, the biggest problem in this networking of charging stations across the entire nation is the reliability and the uptime. That's one of the problem, and the second biggest problem we have it's a cable theft. So we're trying to fight our ways to figure it out the ways how we can actually prevent the people that they're going to be just cutting the cables because of the copper. And to be honest with you, you have a lot of rubber there inside and protection, so you don't even have that much of a copper. But those copper recyclers, they think that they have a lot, and basically maybe they're going to recycle 50, $60 out of that, and but they're going to make like thousands of dollars. They're going to make a damage, and put people on
Yes.
non-operational, and then of course it puts the stress also on the drivers itself when they come and they see that there is like, okay, I see the charger, it's operational, but I come over there's no cord. So that's one of the
Yeah.
biggest of problems. And then the secondly, I would say it's also the networking of the charging stations because as soon as you lose the connectivity on your network, your charging stations become non-operable or they're going to go in a state of, let's say, free mode. Some of the companies, larger companies, that they can afford themselves to have kind of small losses and they're going to go in a free mode. So you as a client, as a customer, when you get to the charger, even if it's not operable, they will then give you that charging sessions for free. However, not many companies are going to do that because majority of the small owners and operators, when they have maybe in their portfolio 5 to 50 units, well, those people cannot afford a revenue loss. So they're going to usually lock down
Exactly.
their charging stations and you're not going to be able to use them. So all that stuff it's kind of need to lead, I would say, the focus to the industry how to solve all these kind of problems, right? I know that the alternative in the future is going to be definitely wireless charging, but we're not that here yet. I mean, first of all, none of these vehicles today that we have are compatible for the becoming a wireless charger. I mean, to go on a wireless charging, right? So you are still
Mm-hmm.
kind of we're still in a phone phase when we had plug-in. Now today's we have a wireless charging, right? So it
Exactly.
will transition. So I mean, eventually, because to be honest, what I see the electric cars, it's nothing except the phone on the wheels. So that's what we're
Yeah.
having, and that's eventually we will have wireless charging. It's just a matter of time, and it's not yet feasible to do the implementation. Well, we still didn't explore what we have right now, but eventually it will happen. And just what I just said, that was also one of the reasons why I decided that I would like to go with my own company to tackle these problems. In a way, we already solved the problems with the software solutions from our end. So, and I'll tell you the reason why I think that the majority companies failed as well. It's because let's say 95% of the charging station equipment it's coming from China, and if anybody says it's not coming from China, it's lying. They're gonna white label them. They're gonna find the ways that they're gonna call that as their product from here, but it's basically made in China or in somewhere over the seas because unfortunately the labor cost in factories over here cost a lot, and the products over here when they produce they're almost 4 times more than anything coming from Asia. So even the tariffs will not influence that much or impact that much on the sale point price over here compared to what is produced over here. That said, the majority of the companies did white labeling. When they did white label, when they brought the product and maybe just change a little bit of the outlook, but they still retain the firmware that is coming from China. And then they also took the software that is operating from China. They just white label the software. They just change it to the English language. But the protocols and all the mandates that come in here with the payment processing and all the requirements by the certifications, those cannot pass over here, or they're going to find a way that they're going to work for a while, and then as soon as they do some type of an update in China, it impacts over here the entire network. Or let's say even from the Europe, you have European manufacturers of the software and the charging stations that they tried over here, and they unfortunately failed. One of them, it's example of Juicebox or the EV Box. They were like European companies that they made over here such a great deals. They got even companies that they went into the grants and stuff like that with their equipment, and then finally they pulled the plug out of the United States because they saw it's not feasible model, because they wanted to do the model the way it's in Europe, but it doesn't work over here. So that's the
Exactly.
reason why I kind of decided, let me try to do my product from scratch. So we identified the product we want, we modified it to the engineering aspect and changed some of the elements inside internally for the better and higher quality elements. And then we actually modified the hardware's firmware, which was very, very difficult to kind of negotiate with the manufacturers to give you access to the firmware. We still don't have a 100% full access, and nobody will give us that because it's a PI. But at least we were able to kind of give them information what we would like actually to build in, so they worked with us. Not many companies will do that. And then based on that one, we also our OCPP, the way which is software side, how it's actually created, it seamlessly communicate with the hardware firmware, and also we created with the POS device, which is a credit card processor, that they have their own firmware to kind of combine together in communication, that all three of them seamlessly communicate. And not only that, if let's say our charging stations, for example, they lose the connectivity with a server, let's say your SIM card or your networking device lost the power or something happened, our charging station will locally communicate between the POS, which is credit card processor, and the hardware. So they're going to have their own internal communication to run the operations seamlessly without even being on a network. And they can actually then, once the POS device or the charger gets back online, it will sync up and back. It will sync up with all the charges retroactively, because it will
That's
retain.
amazing.
Yeah, it will retain the information up to 30 days. So that's really, really good solution, at least for that part, that operation dependability. And then the second part of solving the issues that I think that is also good, that we solved, but like I said, some other companies have different solutions than we do. It's on the AC side, which is level 2 charging stations. We have a pedestals that they're kind of like a cabinet, and our cords and cables are inside the cabinet. So you can actually you will not see the cables until you do not activate the charger. When you activate the charger, side door is going to open, and you're going to gain the access to the cable. After the use of the charging station, you as a customer, you're going to put it back and close the door. By closing the door, you actually end up the session. So you cannot finish your session of charging until you do not close the door and put the cable back in the closet, in the cabinet, let's say.
Wow.
So that way, the cables are not accessible and nobody can actually cut them. Now, other companies created some type of, let's say, sleeves that you put sleeve over the cable that is connected through your software, and it has some type of a sensors. When you start cutting, it will trigger the sensor through the OCPP, but somebody has to kind of monitor that 24/7 and act somebody and send the police, which we know how police fastly they come on the service. Unfortunately,
Exactly.
the court is going to be already gone before anybody comes there. So that's why
Fair enough.
we try to think out of the box on all these elements, and we actually, as a company, we have some of the patent pendings right now on all that stuff already in a place, because we think that's will be a game changer in this industry. Well, good question. I mean, everything starts with the basic shared information. First of all, I need to know you as an owner of the property, that what your desire is. First of all, we start from what type of a property is. Is the property is short term or long term? Of a foot traffic. Depending on that, we will say, okay, level 2 or level 3 or combination of the charging stations. And then we have to make the assessment, okay, how big the property is, how many chargers we can put, how much is the cost. Then after that, down the line, we explain to the clients which directions we're going to need to go, how long it's going to take, and we try to educate them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Majority of the people, they will, they don't even know what they want, to be honest with you. They're going to just come to you and they're going to say, I want charging stations. They want just everything comes to the price. First of all, they want to know the price if they're buyers. If the property is, let's say, lucrative enough in a location by our assessment, then we can actually also finance the project as well. That depends on the locations. But to be honest
Mm-hmm.
with you, I always say to my clients, which sometimes it's very difficult to explain them after we just on the first, let's say, on the first meeting, on the first conversation, right? When you try to explain to the customers that it's always better that they buy and own this equipment, because first of all, then they will be the one that they make money, and they will be the one that they retain all these profits. Me, for example, let's say as a company, I know that we can definitely recoup the money with our investment within a year and a half to 2 years, let's say the most, right? So basically,
Mm-hmm.
after that, we're going to be just basically collecting the funds for the next forever, as long as we have operations on that charging station, right? Now, when it comes to the investment, then we are, in a way, kind of always engaged in the contracts between 5 to 7 years, which means that we own 5 to 7 years of those charging stations. We will finance it, but you as an owner, you're not going to make that money as we will, right, at the time. So I'm very, very frank and very honest to the people. I always give them a chance. I mean, open, with the transparency.
Transparent.
Yeah, transparency. I'm going to explain them. Look, yes, maybe you don't have the money right now. We can finance that project, but in case if you can find and we can actually introduce people to the financing companies that we have also with us, that they're gonna get better deals than going to the regular bank or bank loans, which they are having very hefty interest rates. We go usually through these private brokers and private loans where the interest rate is smaller and it's way faster and easier, streamlined to get actually the investments that they
Mm-hmm.
need, and they can be the full owners of the charging stations. Now, approachment to our and marketing stuff, as you said, right? We are utilizing a lot of the social media. There is also a lot of word of the mouth because a lot of people that we are in this company are already coming out of this network and out of this business being already for a while. So I've been in this industry for 10 years already now. So a lot of people already
Mm-hmm.
knows me, and they kind of track me through through certain different social media when I do the post of this, post of that. So they're going to come to me. Like I said, also newsletters, marketing through the newsletters. Then it's also the shows and expos where we are present. We don't go to all of them because we just are a small company for now, so we cannot go to the all to capture all the expos and be present. Myself and
Mm-hmm.
my director of sales here and there, we're going to be also a spokesperson on the expos and events. So we kind of share the information as much as we can. Also, like this podcast, right? This is already, I don't know for how many times I've been on somebody's podcast trying to explain
Mm-hmm.
exactly the situation. Every single person has a little bit different question and flow that I share different type of information as today. And then I have also my own podcast. So we have our own podcast that we also run the information on bi-weekly.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it doesn't happen exactly in 2 weeks. Depends of the informations, and we don't want to be repetitive. But
Of
we
course.
try to provide as much as we can informations, and not only about the charging stations, but it's in general technological advancements from the solar, wind. It doesn't matter. We're gonna capture everything that we know. Because the entire technology for the energy is shifting. It's not just the cars.
And
Thank you for having me. Bye bye.